Howdy folks, my name's Hunter Boyd, owner of HB's Custom Lures, and welcome back to episode 3 of Tackle Tip Tuesday. Today we're talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, something that I grew up doing. This is what got me into fishing. We're talking about fishing in ponds today. And I'm going to show you guys a little something that's been a very top secret bait for me for many years, but I'm going to let you guys in on it. So here it is right here. Just a little crappie jig, 2-inch Yum, I believe it's Yum, little twist tail jig. That's a 1/8 ounce jig head, just a ball head. I prefer a white. This is called a pearl white, so it's actually a little bit clearer. So you'll see whenever we go out to the pond here in a minute, we'll be throwing this. The rod I got this on is a Pflueger President rod. It's a 6-foot medium. It's ultralight rod, 6-pound test line, and a 5.2 to 1 gear ratio Pflueger spinning reel. So this is a very light setup. You'll catch a lot of fish on these little jigs. You can also catch big fish, believe it or not. There's been a lot of big fish I've seen caught, a lot of fish I've caught myself on jigs exactly like this. For ponds, I prefer a white. This is the pearl white. I usually throw a white. This is the pearl white that I got. It's the only thing that I could grab quickly. So they do make like green pumpkin colors and blacks and pinks in this, but I try to stay away from that. White's pretty simple. I like to keep it simple when I'm fishing in ponds. So another thing I want to throw out there is nothing in this video is made by me. Nothing in this video is HB's Custom Lures. I like selling lures, I do, but I like it when you guys catch fish, and I like it when I catch fish. So I'm here to teach you guys. That's what these videos are about. My company is all about your success, not mine. So hopefully you guys learned something, and we're going to go to the pond and hopefully catch some fish. Alright, there's number one. Little guy, but we're not expecting much today throwing these little jigs. I apologize for the wind noise if there is any. Basically what we got going on here is I'm in the shallow side of the pond, just kind of fan casting around. With the sun being high, the fish should be up shallow. I just got another bite. Should be up shallow. It's a little bit chillier today with the wind, but they still should be up shallow, moving around and getting active with their spawning. So just a steady retrieve on the jig, then I shake it a couple times every cast. Just out and reel it right back to you. Nothing too fancy, gonna make a move. So another thing I want to talk about when it comes to pond fishing is pond management. I spent a little bit of time trying to add some things to this pond to make it just a little bit better, and this right here in front of me is one of those things. It's just a little brush pile. It's about 4 foot long, nothing too special. Just kind of cut a limb off a tree and threw it in there. It's in about 2 foot of water, so I'm gonna make a couple casts out here and see if we can't catch anything off of it. So a big key to my success when I'm pond fishing is making the right cast in the right spot. So a lot of times when I come to a spot like this, I'll fish right down the side of the bank parallel, because if the fish are shallow, I can keep that bait in the strike zone for a lot longer than I would just fan casting around into random places. And also, I have my polarized sunglasses on, so I'm looking in the shallow parts of this pond and looking for the structure. And right here where I'm standing, straight out from me is a line of grass about 4 feet off the bank. It's about 6 inches under the water. And I can see that with my glasses, so when I come to cast parallel, I know that that's there, and I can target that a lot better for a lot longer with a parallel cast versus some other inches fan casting around into random places. There we go. So, like I was talking about earlier with the pond management, I I cut a small tree down and cut it up into about 5 different sections that were about 1.5 feet long, and it's probably 1 inch around. And I took a hammer and I drove them into the mud. I did this last summer, and I'll show you guys up close what it looks like. So that's what I just caught that fish off of. It's nothing fancy, didn't cost me anything, just a little bit of time. So I drove that into the mud, and that's been there, gosh, it's been over a year now probably. I did it probably last spring, early summer. So close to a year. Ooh, had a bite there. And that's what I caught that fish off of. Just creates a little bit of structure, something for a fish to stick around and give you something to cast to hopefully get a fish. And I put it in this area because there's a little cut in here that gets a little bit shallower. So I put it right next to that, hoping that maybe the fish would come over towards this. And it's also about the perfect casting distance from the dock. So that's why I put that in that location. There we go. Just another little guy. You will catch a lot of little fish on these crappie jigs, but I have also seen some of the biggest fish I've seen caught in my life on these little crappie jigs as well. So it really just depends where you're at and what kind of fish are in the pond that you're fishing in. This pond does not have very many big ones. There is a few 5-pounders, but the majority of them are 12 inches long. I'm working on getting that. Oh, that one hit right as soon as it hit the water. I'm working on fixing that, trying to get the population under control a little bit better, but it does take time to get that fixed. This is about an average fish for this pond. So, get him back. Gosh, I've lost count. I think that's 4. 3 or 4. Here we go. So another couple things I want to talk about. Not only is the parallel casting and targeting specific structure a key, but another key is to move around. A lot of people will stand on the dock and fish in one area for the entire time. I'm always constantly moving because I'm looking for active fish, and there's certain times of the year when staying in one spot helps because the fish aren't as active. But this time of year, especially today, with it being a little bit warmer than normal and the sun being out, with the wind blowing, the fish are definitely going to be active today. And so I'm going to try and move around and find the most active fish in that area and move on as soon as I catch those fish. Another thing is, you'll see what I'm fishing on right now is the corners. I catch a lot of fish in the corners for some reason. And also the wind is blowing at my back, blowing straight into the bank that I'm fishing on right now. The wind plays a huge role in how the fish set up, especially the active ones. They'll sit in the wind because the wind will carry a lot of the algae and the food that the fish will be eating to the fish. They won't have to move as much. And so the wind plays a big key role in where the fish will set up. So the wind-blown banks, trying to fish parallel down this bank, catching the most active fish and moving on as soon as I've caught them. I have my back to the wind right now, so that's why you guys can actually hear me, but I'm going to eventually go around this corner and the wind's going to be right in my face. So I will not be surprised if I have to cut the audio out of this next section. So one more thing I forgot to mention is that drain pipe that's right over there. a lot of the times whenever you get a big rain and the water's flowing out of the drain pipe or flowing into a pond from the banks, you can catch a lot of fish around those too, any type of current. So I'm going to walk around this corner. Oh, there's one. Maybe I'm not. Alright. They're healthy fish. They're small, but they're healthy. So I'm going to walk around this corner. The wind's probably going to get bad, so if I have to cut the audio, I apologize, and I'll talk to you guys in a second. There we go. Off the pipe. I don't believe there's any water flowing through it, but they will still sit up on it because it gives them a little shade. Fish don't have eyelids, so they can hug up against a tree or a grass or a drain pipe, in this case, to provide them a little bit of shade to get out of their eyes. That definitely helps. That's why you would want to target those structures. One of the reasons you want to target those structures. Oh. Oh, I'm all hung up. Alright, so that fish there came off of a little isolated grass clump that's in the middle of this cove here. This cove cuts off the main part of the pond, and there's big clumps of grass out about 15 feet off the bank and about 3 feet of water. And that fish there was sitting on one of them. I've got another little brush pile right up here. It's actually gotten a lot smaller than from last year. Deteriorates over time, but there should still be one sitting on it. There's one right there. That might be the best one of the day. Pretty good little fish. Be a nice one in a few years. So here's a better view of the brush pile I was talking about. Nothing really fancy, just a couple of tree limbs. There's a few, I'm not sure if you guys can see them, but there's a few here submerged, and then this bigger clump in the middle, and then a few on this side. I put it in the back of this cove. I prefer to put my structure in the backs of coves or somewhere off of the main part of the pond, just because in the springtime right now those fish will use that as cover for their spawn. And then here in the water we've got a little bit of grass right on the edge of the pond. It's just a few inches of water, and that's what that fish just came off of. And then this big tree here has overhanging limbs which will provide shade. Just knowing what to look for, what to cast to, what fish will hold to, really is a big part of catching fish in ponds. What we got here is where the shallow part of the pond comes back and cuts into another shallower part. The levee's over there, and then the deeper water out in the middle. What I like to fish here is called a point. This depth, it just causes a little bit of a depth difference. Even if it's a few inches to a foot, it does make a difference, especially this time of year with the fish setting up to spawn. I catch a lot of fish in the summertime off of this point. So we're heading back into the shallow part of this pond. right across the way is where we started at. I try to target shallower parts of the ponds, especially in the spring, because the fish will move up into that shallow water for their spawn. The levee is always going to be your deeper water, so in the summertime when it does get hot, you can always drop off into that deep water and target those deeper fish that are hanging out there. But this section of the pond is between 2 and 3 feet deep all the way across. I can walk it in knee boots. So what we've got up here, this tree had some overhanging limbs that we trimmed off of it, and they're now laying in the water. There's a lot of water up in them, so I suspect that there's going to be a fish up in these limbs that are in the water. If I can get to them to fish them the right way. It's kind of difficult with the way that tree sits. You'll notice I swung way out from that tree to try and fish this back side, because if I walked around, the fish that would be sitting on this side would have seen me and got scared and not bit, even though there's not one there, I don't think. It's nice to take extra precautions just in case there is a 5-pounder sitting on this other side of this tree. So now we'll just fish the corners, just where the grass is at, and hope that there's a big one laying out here somewhere. You'll notice the way I'm fishing this bait, I keep my rod tip up in the air because the shallow water, I got to keep it up off the bottom, and I'm just shaking it and slow reeling every now and then. And the fish have eaten the tail off of this bait. So it does have a little bit of a different action whenever I shake it now. It kind of shoots around, darts around a little bit. I kind of like that. There's certain times when it's not good, but I kind of like the way it looks anyway. I'm not sure if the fish will. So one thing I have noticed on my walk around this pond today, I don't see any beds anywhere. That's kind of concerning to me, but at the same time it's not, because with the muddy water I probably wouldn't be able to see them anyway. But with the time of year and as warm as it has been, they should be bedding right now, or at least making their beds. But none of the fish really have those kinds of marks on them. The fish this time of year, when they're making beds, will start to get bloody tails and bloody fins from rolling around in the mud, making their beds. I haven't noticed that on any of the fish we've caught today. All right, guys, we're done fishing. I had the GoPro on for 35 minutes, so everything you just saw was in a 35-minute span. I'd assume we caught around 10 to 15 fish. Just fished around the pond one time, pretty quick little trip. So thank you guys for watching. I had a lot of fun. This is the first time that I've been able to get out and do a little pond fishing this year, so I had a blast. I hope you guys enjoyed watching and you learned something along the way. So thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for next week.